Good morning, everybody. So it's Monday the 12th of September. It's chilly here in Warkworth, very brisk. I think it's just after 8. I'm not quite sure what the time is yet, sorry. This morning I'm got a few things to do around Warkworth and then being collected at midday to shoot off down to an appointment in Auckland, then on to the airport and into Wellington. I'm at Warehouse tonight talking to students from Victoria University, and since I last saw them we've announced our upfront investment tertiary policy, so I'm taking a whole lot of supporting documentation. I'm on a political panel there with other politicians. They do that once a year, so it's a cool way to interact. It's an interesting opportunity to listen to what other politicians have to say. Last year, pretty sure David Seymour told those with those students who were suffering from mental health to suck it up. So let's see what happens this year. While I'm here, I thought I'd update you. I noticed that the little video that I did with regard to the Housing Legislation Amendment Bill, so that was the one that changed the Public Works Act. I noticed that's been resonating with a lot of you, and I've had several messages asking me what happened to that bill, at what stage is that bill. So what happened there was that the government called urgency on Tuesday the 6th of September, and so the House went into urgency at 3 p.m. So that means that now we're going to, and they said we're going to do this at all stages with no public consultation. So the House went into urgency at 3 p.m. It sat all the way through to 10 p.m. on Tuesday the 6th with an hour dinner break, and then it reconvened at 9 o'clock on Wednesday the 7th a.m. It went all the way through to 11 p.m. that night with a lunch hour break and a dinner hour break. And then at 11 p.m. that night, there was a vote, and the government managed to pass that bill into law through all stages with no public consultation by one vote. And that's what happens when you get the ACT Party and United Future voting with the government. So everybody else opposed that piece of legislation except the ACT Party and United Future. So that's what happened. It became law. It became law after 18 hours of debate. It became law. So what's probably really interesting though too is to where that piece of legislation came from, because it basically came out of the blue. Nobody was really aware of it, and you have to ask yourself, why would a government on a Tuesday pull in a piece of legislation that they hadn't thought far enough about, that they weren't able to stop the opposition members from filibustering? Why would they bring it in on a Tuesday and push it through all stages as fast as possible with no public consultation? Now, to understand that, I think you have to go back to an interview with Paddy Gower on the 27th of August on The Nation, and go and have a look at that interview between Paddy Gower and Nick Smith. So Paddy Gower makes this comment, because I've seen this transcript. He says there is a special housing accord area in Manukau that is meant to have 800 houses on it in over 300 working days. It's a field. It's got pukeko in it. There are no houses. Now the bit that's important there is the over 300 working days. So what that meant was that the developers that had purchased that special housing accord area under the current Special Housing Accord Areas Act that this government passed in 2013, they're not required to do full public notification of their development. So they've been given an opportunity to bypass the RMA and just do a really targeted notification, like the guy right next door, rather than the township that this is going to be in. So those were really limited notification special conditions that were given to the developers that were going to do special housing accord areas. Now, you could agree with that or not agree with that, but it's a fact. And then there was another piece that Paddy said. Oh, no, it's not Paddy. This is what's actually inside the description of that Special Housing Accord, Special Housing Areas Act 2013. The government's housing accord and special housing areas are due to make way for the new release of the Auckland Unitary Plan. So, when the Auckland Unitary Plan got signed off, that triggered a clause inside that 2013 Act, which meant that if developers hadn't put in and got their consents all signed off by Auckland Council. They only had 300 days after the unitary plan was signed to do so under those restricted clauses. So that was the other bit that I couldn't remember when I first spoke, because I was so distracted by what was happening with the Public Works Act that I had forgotten to mention this piece of that bill. So what this government did under urgency, and I believe it's because they forgot that when the unitary plan was signed of Auckland, that those special housing accord special conditions were going to disappear, that they had a sunset clause on them. And I think they rushed back to Parliament, Nick Smith rushed back to Parliament and had people write that legislation as fast as possible so they could get it into the House the following week, and so that they could then get it through all in one go, so that removed the fact that they had forgotten that those developers who've bought special housing accord land had not developed it in the time frame that they were given to develop it. They had not got their consents and they had not started to build. They were going to lose the ability to not consult with the public. And so the government pushed through a piece of legislation that fixed that. Now, I know that's a really long explanation, and I'm sorry, but there's not much, I've simplified it as much as I can simplify it to bring it down to language that you and I can understand about what's going on here. And the very fact that that bill was passed at 11 o'clock at night, I think goes to show you as the New Zealand public that the government themselves know that this was not a very cool thing to do, that this should have gone to public consultation through a select committee process, but they knew all hell was going to break loose if they did it. So they didn't. So that bill is law. That's the outcome of it's called the Housing Legislation Amendment Bill. It has a very innocuous little statement about what it does, but it does those two things. It gives developers more time with specially restricted conditions to be able to build on special housing accord areas, and it amends the Public Works Act so that the government can take land under the Public Works Act, redesignate it into housing, and then sell it. Okay, have a good day, people. It looks like it is going to be a beautiful one. Bye.